This is a low-quality mini episode that is inspired by an email I got from a listener. I'm going to pull that up while I explain why the quality is the way it is. It might not be as bad as I'm thinking, but I'm recording it on my phone because I need to record this now. I'm about to head home for fall break, and I have misplaced my microphone cord, so hopefully I find that over break. But anyways, back to the email I got. I'm not entirely sure if this listener wants me to share their name, but they say, I'm still holding strong for the Tyrgen is the dad theory, but my friend who just got into the book put the thought of Gethen being Sophie's dad in my mind. I dismissed the idea at first, then I looked at the wiki about Gethen, and it low-key makes sense. It says he joined the Neverseen 11 years ago, which would have been after Sophie was made. Plus, how would the Neverseen have known about the Black Swan hiding somebody in the Lost Cities? I get that the DNA was found by Prentice's break, got out in searching, and Alvar would have told them about his father's theories, but why would they care at the time unless they knew what she was going to be like? They had a lot of plans in the process. Why would they just add her to the plans? He also happens to be a blonde telepath. Gethen's main thing is that he's very good at washing memories, which Sophie just so happens to be really good at recovering. She even found one of the memories he shattered in Keith's mind. And considering Fitz and Forkel are the only ones able to enter her mind, it feels like Gethen is somewhat able to do it. In the very first book, he was making sure she wasn't transmitting to somebody for help. I'm not completely sure how that works if Elle can just tune in on mental conversations, but she was trying to reach Fitz or Alden at the time. Maybe her brain just instinctively trusts her a bit, her brain instinctively trusts him a bit, talking about Gethen. Gethen also seems to test Sophie a lot more than the other kids. I get that she has more potential, but he plays so many mind games on her, almost trying to make her a bit like him in the sense of having less and less guilt. I know it's super messed up too, but when he killed Forkel, he could have been wanting her to find a new mentor for telepathy as well. Say if he ever does reveal he's her father, wouldn't there be a part of Sophie that would be super conflicted? Lastly, Forkel said her parents would change the makings of the world or something along those lines. Wouldn't a highly trusted member of the Neverseen do that? I feel like he would shake things up more than Tyrgen being her father would. Tyrgen being her father would almost be too sweet, and even if the world found out about Tyrgen, it would just cause scandal, but not on the level of Orly. What if Gethen used to be a Black Swan member and then betrayed them? And then the listener apologizes for the very long email, which you do not need to do, by the way. We love the long emails. It takes us a while to get to all emails, so it's not just like, oh, you send a long email, I will punish by waiting a month. It's just, it takes us a while to get around to it with what's going on in life. But we love the long emails. It shows that you care about the podcast. It shows that you're listening, and it makes us really happy. It always encourages a lot. And then, yeah, you said basically you can't stop thinking about it. And Gethen is also good at outward channeling, which is also something that Sophie's good at. So, all very good points. And I remember at one point it came up, I don't think it was on the air, but I do know that Sydney and I have talked at least off the air about, what if Gethen is her dad? Is that something that's a possibility? And we came up with two reasons that put together sort of rule out that possibility. So it seems like there's two possibilities for Gethen could be her dad. One, he's on the Neverseen for real, which is what you seem to be thinking, that he was a Black Swan member and betrayed the Black Swan and joined the Neverseen for real, and is now working against the Black Swan. Or number two, he's a double agent, so something like what Keith was doing. So you've already kind of ruled out the he's a double agent thing, but I'm going to explain the 2 points that make that impossible. So, point one is the whole thing that happened in Lodestar with him destroying Luminaria and killing Forkel. I don't think he would do that if he was truly on the side of the Black Swan and just acting as a double agent on the Neverseen. And then the second point doesn't prove that he's a Neverseen member. It actually kind of goes against he's a Neverseen member and Sophie's dad theory. So, we've already disproven that he's a double agent. That doesn't make any sense. He wouldn't have killed one of the Forkels. Even if he did know that there were two Forkels, he wouldn't have killed one. The Black Swan is very unprepared for that. It's not like it was their plan. They were like, okay, one of the Forkels will sacrifice themselves so that, Gethen, you can make it look like to the Neverseen one of them is dead. Well, if that was the case, he also wouldn't have gone along with tearing down Luminaria. He wouldn't have, I feel like there would have been more conflictedness about that, and I feel like the Black Swan would have been more prepared for the first Forkel to die. So I don't think he's a double agent. Okay, the other option is he's really on the Neverseen. He used to be on the Black Swan, and he betrayed the Black Swan. Well, if that's the case, why has Gethen, with all of his mind tricks and how much he likes to throw the Black Swan off mentally and throw the Lost Cities off mentally, and especially Sophie, why hasn't he ever said anything about being her dad? Obviously, he's very good at protecting his mind, at deleting other people's memories, but, as you notice, Sophie's good at recovering memories. Logically, so would Gethen, and it's not like anyone would have deleted his memory of that if he betrayed the Black Swan and joined the Neverseen. I also wonder if it would have come up before now, on the side of the Black Swan, Gethen used to be one of our agents, he might have information, and there's no other telepaths on the Neverseen who would have washed Gethen's mind at all. So, if he was Sophie's dad, he would know, and he would have this piece of information that he could use against her, he could use to mess her up at any time. A really good time to use that would have been while she was down interrogating him in Luminaria, because that would have been a time that it would have thrown the council off. That information would make the council immediately 100 times more suspicious of Sophie. It would have put her back under surveillance, probably. It would have turned everyone in the Lost Cities against her if she's related to this psychopath, especially after Luminaria is destroyed. If the Neverseen had let it get out then Gethen would have been able to use this information against Sophie in a way that would have made it very difficult for her, especially in that whole, the flashback era stuff with all of the trolls and the controversy around that, and especially even in Lodestar. He doesn't know, obviously, that she's found out about her mother, but she was at a very, emotionally and mentally unstable place in Legacy, and being able, having that information, Gethen would have told someone. He would have told Sophie, or he would have let on to the counselors that he was her dad. There would have been some giant proclamation by now, just for the sake of throwing Sophie and throwing the Lost Cities off and turning the Lost Cities and the council against her, or at least making them more suspicious of her. And since he hasn't done that, I'm kind of not 100% behind the Gethen is Sophie's dad theory. That's what keeps me from it, is because logically, if he had that information, he would have used it against her by now. And there's not, there are a lot of similarities between them. There's not a hard and fast way to disprove that, but there are a lot of similarities between all telepaths. Outward channeling is a lot like the mental exercise, especially that Sophie does, but all telepaths do whenever they transmit directly to a person. They're just kind of transmitting their energy directly to an object, and then the fact that, oh my goodness, I forgot his name. It may have been Jinzi, but one of the other characters was also really good at it, and he was like, cool, maybe I'll manifest as a telepath. That makes me think that outward channeling is something that's strongly connected to telepaths. Maybe they're just better at it because that is a lot like how they read minds and how they directly transmit. And so I hesitate to get behind the Gethen theory solely because he does have a lot of, if he was her dad, he would have a lot of leverage and information that he could have used to manipulate her by now, especially whenever he was kind of in charge. Plus, he's going crazy. Now he'll just say anything if he thinks that it will throw Sophie off. So, the whole we have the catches thing, maybe Sophie wasn't supposed to know that, but he decided to tell her because it would be entertaining to him to see how much panic it put her through. Well, how much more entertaining would it have been to him? How much more panicked would it have made Sophie if he was her father? We would have maybe had some kind of Darth Vader, I am your father moment, and that's a whole, as we saw in Star Wars, that obviously causes a whole, big situation in the main character's head, and this whole crisis of, oh, am I horrible because my father's horrible? And I definitely think that the Neverseen would have encouraged Gethen to use that information by now, or that Gethen just would have done it by himself because of how insane he is. So, I hope that this response correctly to your email is a pretty long email. Definitely a really good theory, and I believe it's come up in, outside of the podcast before, but this adds a little bit more detail to our whole Tiergan is the father theory, because we get a lot of questions about that, mostly because it's not in our parent theories episode. Our official theory isn't until the book one, I think, spoiler-filled episodes, maybe even part 2. So it's in a very strange episode, and we get a lot of questions about it because of that, but I'm planning to release more of these little mini episodes explaining theories that may or may not be buried in a podcast somewhere, that are easily labeled and easy for people to go and click on. Thank you, by the way, everyone who's been supporting us on the Buy Me a Coffee and on just by listening on our regular podcast. I know there may have been some ads here and there, and that is, again, just to make sure that Sydney and I can keep the podcast up and keep it running, because it has cost us money for a couple years just to keep it on the air. So I really appreciate those listeners who send emails of encouragement and who are able to support us financially as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and feel free to email in any more questions if you want a little mini episode answering your questions.